Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Losses Above Replacement, the greatest baseball podcast to grace your ears. I'm today's host, Matthias Altman Kurosaki, and with me, as always, we have Ryan Splash Potts, my lone co-host today. Alex Clark is on the road right now. So first things first, as we begin every episode, Splash, how are you doing on this fine Monday afternoon?
We're vibing. It's a Monday, so that means it's cleaning day at work. So I'm not looking forward to that. I'm also not looking forward to watching the Atlanta Barbs moving forward. Just the so many exciting players are hurt, and it bums me out to watch. But we proceed. I have some fun travel plans next month, so I guess I'll just put my head down at work and not think about anything, and then I'll be traveling in August. So exciting times.
Yeah, and I am traveling a week from today. I am going to Japan for the first time since 2019. So looking forward to that. But also that means I will not be on the next couple of shows. You guys will be left with Splash and Alex. I'm so sorry for all of you viewers. I'm sure you're in great hands, but who knows? Other than that, the Olympics are coming up this week. I'm very excited about that, and I'm sure you are too, Splash. Personally, that's like my favorite sporting event. I know it's only once every 4 years, but I think it's really, really awesome. We had the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies over the weekend too. I'd be doing better though if the Mets could figure out how to beat the Marlins. They are 2-4 at Lone Depot Park this year. I tweeted this the other day, and when I was talking with the SNY the other day, it came up. It feels like the Marlins. The Mets can be built like the 1998 Yankees, and the Marlins can be built like the 1962 Mets. But all of a sudden, it's Mets Marlins, and the Marlins turn into world beaters. And I was saying, it could be, the Mets trying to beat the worst team in history, the worst Marlins team in history, but boom, the Marlins take 2 out of 3. So yeah, I'd be doing a lot better if the Mets could beat the Marlins. But here we are. We are a week out from the trade deadline, which is on July 30th at 4 p.m. Eastern. So we have a list of 10 players here who are on the trading block, supposedly, and we're going to talk about where we think they will be traded. Maybe they won't get traded at all. So let's go ahead and start with a player who is a former All-Star, a former Home Run Derby finalist, and he took the world by storm when he was a rookie. Now he's kind of had an uneven year. I'm talking about Randy Arozarena. It sounds like the Rays are headed towards being sellers. They aren't necessarily a bad team, but they aren't really competing in that wild card race. So, Splash, where do you think Randy Arozarena ends up this summer?
So, Arozarena is a weird one. He has the counting stats that are right in line with the normal Randy Arozarena season. 15 home runs, 14 steals. He actually has an above average OPS plus this year at 104. So it's like a lot of the things you expect from Randy, you're getting from Randy. But what you're not getting from Randy is that this year it seems like he's lacking the personality because he's not hitting like he usually does. He's a career 256 hitter, which isn't anything crazy, but this year he's hitting just 212. And it's just, he's not an all-star. He's not, leading the world in like aura, right? He's one of the aura Hall of Famers, if you will. But I don't know. I do think Randy stays put. The Rays are in the classic Rays situation that I wouldn't be surprised if they traded him. That's a totally reasonable thing for them to do. That's why we're talking about it today. I wish the ads didn't play when I shared my screen, but that's okay. I definitely could see the Rays trading him. I don't think they will. I think he is more of a keystone member than they generally have, and a player who is meaningful to them and their fans. Unlike, say, I think Brandon Lau might get traded. I think that would be a perfectly reasonable trade. He's not as big of a name as Randy, but I could see a team that needs corner outfield help or second base help making the move for Brandon Lau. But I would lean no on Randy getting dealt this year.
So, you mentioned that Randy has not exactly been himself this year. I will say this. He got off to an absolutely dreadful start. He had a 455 OPS on May 1st. Since then, though, he's played in 65 games, 265 plate appearances. And he has an 841 OPS. That's a Randy Arozarena stat line, I think. He's hit 12 homers in that time span. His career OPS for reference is 787. That's a 123 OPS plus for his career. So, I mean, if whoever trades for Arozarena is getting, I think, more of what you expect. I mean, there's no way he was going to continue to play as poorly as he did that first month of the season. The team that I'm going to watch, and I know that they are looking for bats right now because half of their lineup is kind of struggling. I'm going with the Phillies. Obviously it hurts me to say that as a National League East guy, but the Phillies, I mean, they haven't gotten what they expected out of Nick Castellanos. Kyle Schwarber has kind of had a down year. Other than really Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, and Alec Boehm, it feels like their lineup has left a lot to be desired. And I think Arozarena could be that spark plug. Their pitching staff has been fantastic. They're even with a little bit of regression from Ranger Suarez and Christopher Sanchez. They have a really, really good pitching staff. The bullpen's been fantastic, especially Jeff Hoffman and Matt Strahm. So I could see the Phillies going out there and getting Arozarena. I think his value has diminished enough where they won't have to give up like a ton of prospects. Like they probably won't have to give up Aiden Miller necessarily, but I could see them doing this trade, and it would benefit them greatly. He's a middle of the order type of bat. So, I mean, realistically, what are the chances? Would you give it like a 60-40 or a 70-30? Like, what do you think the chances are that he actually gets down?
So the Rays do like to trade their guys before they get super, super expensive, and Randy still has a couple years of ARB left. I'd probably lean like 60-40 that he does get traded. If I'm the Rays, I wouldn't trade him. I would try and like run it back with them, but I know that's not really the Rays' MO, that they're either
correct.
good enough to make the playoffs and make a deep run, or they're selling, which, fair enough. They're the Rays, and they're usually pretty good at the whole thing, but I would say 60-40 gets traded. Philly is a decent shout. Really, any team with outfield help. Kansas City. If I'm Kansas City, I
can see the Royals
knocking down the door here. I don't know if the Rays would love to trade him to another AL team, and the Royals don't exactly have like a great farm system here. But
yeah, they just traded their second best prospect for Hunter Harvey, so
that's true. So you're in like a bit of no man's land if you're Kansas City, that you're like good and you're in a playoff spot or in playoff contention, serious playoff contention, but you don't really have the reinforcements on your major league club or your minor league affiliates to really strengthen that position.
Yeah, and it's also like, I'm sure the Rays would want a major league ready player, and I'm not sure if the Royals have someone who they're willing to give up in exchange for Arozarena. It's clear though that the Royals are trying to be buyers this year. I mean, they're firmly in contention. They've lasted a heck of a lot longer than I expected. So I would be on the lookout for the Royals. They do need outfielders. I will say the one thing that does concern me about Arozarena is that his defense has really taken a step back the last couple of years. Again, he's ranked below average, -5 outs above average. It's concerning. There isn't a ton of red necessarily on his StatCast page. I mean, there are, he's drawing walks at a good rate. He's still striking out a lot, though. It's not a lot of dark red. It's a lot of, middle ground there. He's still decently fast, though. So I say we move on over to the other Florida team that has a pretty intriguing trade chip, and that is Jazz Chisholm Jr. It seems almost certain the Marlins are going to trade him. They're not in contention. He's an attractive piece. He has a couple more years of club control. So I'll go first on this one, and I'm going with the Yankees on this. The Yankees,
wow.
The Yankees offense, all right, granted, they've scored 9 runs today, but the Yankees offense really, other than Judge and Soto, has not gotten their jobs done. And I'm pointing specifically to Alex Verdugo, who's been in an awful slump for the last month with an OPS hovering around 500, I believe, since June 15th. So not great. An OPS for the season at 651, which is an 82 OPS plus. Other than Judge, who has a 208 OPS plus, and Soto, who has a 181 OPS plus, And I guess the recently recalled Ben Rice, who only has 106 plate appearances, he's a 112 OPS plus. Everyone else has a below average OPS plus on that roster. And I mean, Chisholm's OPS plus is barely above average. I will say that much, but they desperately, desperately need a spark plug, and B, just some offense. Anyone who could hit. So I think the Yankees, they could, maybe they try him a little bit at DH. Maybe they try to teach him how to play corner outfield. But I think that he's a perfect fit for the Yankees. And, yes, he's young. He's only 26. But this is much like a Rosarena. I think his value has taken a bit of a step back since 2022. So I don't think the Yankees would have to give up, like an arm and a leg to get him. I wouldn't even think they would have to give up Spencer Jones to get him. So I think the Yankees end up with him. And I think in Yankee Stadium, which is great for left-handed hitters, I think it would be a pretty good fit.
Yeah, I think the Yankees are a reasonable shout. I don't know how well Jazzo's personality would work in New York.
It would be interesting. Yeah, I'd be curious about that. Yeah.
I feel like he's more of he feels like more of a Met than a Yankee to me. I don't know if you would get the same vibe, but I don't think the Mets would trade for him. Although the Mets could use some help at second base this season. I don't know. I think the Yankees could use him. I think he could play a reasonable second base, although I still like Gleyber Torres. And center field.
Torres is having a down year too. That's the thing.
That's true. And he would be a bit more of a long-term option than Torres, who can walk at the end of the year. Then if you put him in center field, then you move Judge to a corner that, in theory, reduces his workload over the course of the season.
Or shift Soto over to left, maybe.
That as well. So you like rearrange your outfield a little bit better, and it upgrades over Verdugo, and it upgrades over Trent Grisham. I don't know. I think Jazz. I try not to say players are overrated, but I think being on the cover of MLB The Show and being like
it's kind of unexpected.
Like the Aura King, if you will. Like we talk about Randy as the Aura King with the Mexico World Baseball Classic run and the playoff run. Yeah. Well, Jazz has the aura, but he doesn't have the back it up part of it, right? He doesn't have the World Series heroics. He doesn't have the, MVP votes and this, that, the other. And he is a little injury prone, and you have the defense in center field, which is fine. He's never played a corner
average
before.
This year.
Yeah, he's fine in center. I don't think he's a great fit for shortstop. I know some teams, he can play shortstop.
Anthony Volpe's there. I wouldn't see him playing shortstop in New York.
I've seen Philly tossed around as a spot. One team that I don't think would make the move, but I think would be intriguing if they did make the move, Pittsburgh. I've talked about it with Luis Robert. Jazz is like the lesser version of Luis Robert. It has the tools to be very good, just hasn't quite shown that. He could play center field. Michael A. Taylor has been a bit of a bust this season. Jack Sawinski strikes out everything he looks at. So you plug Jazz in center, and I think that's a totally fair thing. Again, I don't think Pittsburgh does that, but they're right there in the playoff hunt. They were above 500. They had won 6 in a row before they lost yesterday. So Pittsburgh, Cincinnati still needs some outfield help. TJ Friedel's been in and out with injury the whole season. You're like relying on Rhys Hines to give you production, and you're relying on like just a conglomerate of, but a lot of that's in the infield too. So I think Jazz would also be a good fit at Great American Ballpark.
The tough part, the Dodgers are another team I was considering, and I could see him. Well, there's one issue there though, is that there's the whole
Miguel
thing
Rojas.
between him and Miguel Rojas. Yeah. That's the one reason why I was like hesitant to mention the Dodgers as a trade partner there.
Fair. Man, that would be quite hilarious.
I'll say this though, is that you mentioned the Reds. Unfortunately, the Reds got swept out of the All-Star break by the Nationals and are 6 games under 500. They are 4 back of a wild card. It's I think the Reds are leaning selling. That's the issue, and I don't really see. I mean, maybe Chisholm's young and he has a couple years of control. Maybe you hang on to him, or maybe you trade him and try to hang on to him. But I don't see the Reds necessarily. The Pirates are an interesting one because, like you said, they're above 500 right now. They're a half game out of a playoff spot.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be tough because they have a lot of young arms, so you don't know how many more innings Paul Skeens will pitch, or when Jared Jones comes back, how many more innings is Jared Jones going to pitch? But yeah, I think the Yankees, the Dodgers. I could see potentially Atlanta looking at them. I mean, Albies is out 8 weeks, so maybe you look to move him, and the outfielders haven't necessarily lit the world on fire. So it's also tough. Like, do you want to trade for him to be an outfielder, or are you trading for him to be a second baseman?
Right. Or to your point, heaven forbid, trying to trade for him to be a shortstop or a corner outfield, which he's never played.
Yeah, that's the tough part. Is that yes, like you've played center field. I am curious to see what he would do if he had to play like left per se. It's in theory, left is not supposed to be as challenging. You don't have to cover as much ground, but he's a very good athlete. That's the thing.
Yes.
That's why he was, he's decent enough range in center field where he can be league average there. I was very, very skeptical that he could play center field well, but and I think he's proven that he can at least, he can be passable in center field.
For sure.
It's, it's a tough thing to measure. He's a talented player. I think if you put him in a winning environment, he would definitely succeed more. I mean, there have been a couple of times I've watched him this year where, I remember there was an at bat where he was up with, I think it was 2 men on and 1 out. And he got a 3-0 count, and he just swung at a pitch that was a foot inside and it popped on the infield. It's like, it makes me wonder how much he wants to be in Miami right now. And really, I can't blame him. They're in last place. And I think if you put him on the Yankees, or if you put him on the Dodgers, or if you put him on a team that's in contention, he will play very well.
I think the Phillies make some sense. He could play center field there because they've had inconsistent production out of whoever they put in center.
Johan Rojas,
Mr. No Bat, all glove, and the glove hasn't been all that great this season. So, Jazz and center makes sense for me there. You could hit him 9th. Like he would be
he could be decent. You could also. I don't know. The way that the Phillies offense has been this year, I could see him being a middle of the order bat for them. It's just, he's hit well with runners in scoring position too. He's batting over 300 with runners in scoring position. It's, that lineup, once you get below like Bohm in the lineup, it really becomes a lot of question marks. Castellanos has been inconsistent.
Unless there's world news, then he becomes Babe Ruth.
Yeah. Stott has struggled badly lately. Real Muto has been out for most of the year. He just came back, but he hasn't been himself.
Right.
So they definitely do need bats. I'll tell you that much. So I wouldn't be surprised if Chisholm goes there. But I say we move over to an arm, and this is one of the most coveted arms on the market. Huge breakout season. And I'm talking about Garrett Crochet. Teams always need pitchers, and it seems like he's on his way out on the south side. The White Sox tried to extend him. He didn't accept. So it looks like he's on the trade block. If anywhere, A, do you see him getting traded? And B, if he does get traded, where does he go?
I think Crochet gets dealt, and I think the Baltimore Orioles swoop in and drop the mother load on the White Sox here. That's the sort of the ace in the sleeve for Baltimore, is that they have the one sad thing about baseball is that you can only have 9 players on the field at a given time. The Orioles definitely get the memo, but they feel like they don't get the memo. They're Norfolk Tides, the AAA team, stock full of major league level players, right? Even the Jackson Holidays of the world, who has been heating up since returning from injury. Like you have Holiday, you have Mayo, you have Basayo, you have just
Norby.
All sorts.
Yeah.
You have Norby as well. You have just all of these, you have loads and loads of players. And then at the major league level, you have Jordan Westberg, who's in your permanent plans, probably. Gunnar Henderson, who's in your permanent plans, probably. I would hope so. So you're just kind of full on players. And I think you at this point, leverage that depth and say, hello, Chicago White Sox. We are going to offer you a trade. I think Baltimore, more than any team in baseball, has that ability to offer just more, just add another piece, add another fun arm, another fun bat, another one of this, another guy like this. And it's just that depth that I think will take them over the top. So if they pinpoint Michael Elias and company, if they pinpoint the arm they want or the bat they want, I don't think they would trade for a bat, but they pinpoint the arm they want, whether that's Crochet or a player we're going to talk about in a minute, or another player we're going to talk about in a minute, or pick your favorite player. They have the ammo to make that trade happen. Now, the Tarek Skubal trade talks, those are some of the most ridiculous trade offers I've ever seen, but they have the ability to make that happen. If in this case, the White Sox want someone, the Orioles can either do that, or they have a contingency plan to say, well, maybe not, we're not going to trade you Jackson Holiday, but we have another guy who could be the number one prospect next year. We have another guy who could be your star on the left side of the infield for the next decade. Or we have another guy here, and we have another guy here. They all look the same, right? So they're in this. Crochet gets traded to the Orioles.
Yeah, so I also have Crochet going to the Orioles. I think, it seems pretty likely he's going to get dealt, and I think at this point it's not going to take as much convincing for the White Sox to trade him. And the Orioles, like you said, they have all the talent in the world stocked up on the major league roster and in their minor league system. So, and they desperately need starters. I mean, they need relievers too, but I mean, their starting rotation. I mean, I really like Corbin Burns, obviously, and I like Grayson Rodriguez. Behind that, I mean, if you need 3 or maybe 4, normally 4 starters to win a playoff series. And if you're going to try to win the World Series, like they are trying to right now, I don't think you can roll into the playoffs with 34-year-old Albert Suarez as your number 3 guy, or Cole Irvin, who struggled badly over the last 6 weeks, or Dean Kremer, who's a fine pitcher, but he's, about average, a little below average. I think Crochet is a great number 2 to Burns. Say Burns walks after this year, you have Crochet for a few more years. It makes too much sense, I think. And you look at Crochet's StatCast page, it's all red. So this is a guy I would shell out the prospects for.
Yeah, now, I do have, the concerns with the innings workload, and do you potentially shut him down? Do you move him to the bullpen and build him back up as a starter in September, October? If let's say I'm not saying Philadelphia trades for him, but take Philadelphia, who has their 4 horses, if you will.
Yeah.
Garrett Crochet would be an absolutely gnarly, multi-inning, bullpen option. I think he's definitely overqualified for that role. But hey, we've seen Patrick Corbin, who received Cy Young votes in 2019, deployed in that role.
Nathan Eovaldi too.
Eovaldi last year, Eovaldi in 2018 as well. With
2018, yeah, he was nasty out
in the World Series. So yeah, he would be overqualified, but you're trying to win the World Series, not appease the man. So that could be. I don't want that to happen, clearly, but that would be an alternate timeline that he's, a high leverage bullpen arm for multi innings, like Madison Bumgarner coming in relief, Randy Johnson coming in relief. That Garrett Crochet, also a lefty. I can see it. I can see the vision. Philadelphia don't trade for him. Imagine trading for Crochet. They swing Crochet in a certain Lou Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly wonder if those two would possibly get packaged together. I don't see it happening. But
that's a huge. I think that would be, if you're Chris Getz, that's just a fundamentally bad decision if you're packaging your players.
I think. I will say I was kind of skeptical that Crochet would succeed as a starter. I thought he was so good as a reliever that I mean, it's funny. I'll compare him to another former White Sox ace, Chris Sale. I thought Chris Sale was just going to be a lockdown reliever for decades. Turns out he became a pretty good starting pitcher, and here we are again. Chris Sale did not make the playoffs a single time with the White Sox. He had to wait until he got traded to win a World Series ring. So I don't know, maybe that happens to Crochet. But
he'll be a game 1 starter in the playoffs again this year, assuming the Braves make the playoffs.
Exactly. Let's move over to one of Crochet's teammates. I'm talking about Eric Fetty, who came back from his very strong stint in Korea. He was league MVP over there in the KBO, Triple Crown winner. He's had a fantastic season for the White Sox, and he actually has a higher wins above replacement than Crochet, according to Baseball Reference. But I'm going to go first on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think he ends up on the Red Sox. The Red Sox, again, another team that's in contention. I know they just had a rocky series against the Dodgers, and they're a game back now in the wild card race. But this is a team I think can make some noise. I think if there's anything I've learned from years past, to never sleep on Boston. And this, they haven't gotten what they wanted out of Brian Bayo this year. I think Nick Pivetta has dealt with injuries. Overall, this rotation, other than Tanner Houck, it's a lot of question marks. Can you rely on Cutter Crawford to keep pitching the way he's pitched this year? He's had home run problems, though. That's the issue. Cooper Criswell, would he be your 5? They really lack depth behind Tanner Houck, and they don't have a ton of arms in their minor league system either. So I think Fetty, he has one more year on his deal after this year. He's not on a heavy salary either. And who knows if he's going to keep pitching at the way he's been pitching this year so far. His expected ERA puts him more as like a mid-3 ERA guy compared to the 2.99 he has right now. It's expected ERA is 3.58. It's not his StatCast page is jumping off the page or anything. But I think the Red Sox don't have to give up a ton to get him. But he makes a lot of sense as like a number 2 or a number 3 behind Howe.
I think Eric Fetty will be swapping centrals. I think he will be a prime trade candidate for the Brewers or Cardinals. I think these are teams that you have your number 1 in theory, your Peralta and your Gray. Then who's the number 2? And you got to figure that out. The Brewers are in a better playoff situation right now, and the Cardinals are the second wild card. But the Cardinals come into a series out of the All-Star break, and you're starting Miles Mikolas. It's like, I don't think Miles Mikolas should be a playoff starter. That you have Sonny Gray, that's great, but you need a number 2. And I think Fetty can be that number 2. I think preferably he's a 3 or a 4 or your starter turned reliever type, like we were talking about with Crochet. Crochet would be overqualified. Fetty's like exactly the player you want in this situation. We've had this conversation before that I don't really think he's a 2. I think he'd be best as a 3, like starting game 3 of a series for you, or coming in as like a piggyback for your 3rd or your 4th option. But I think he makes a lot of sense for Milwaukee. Milwaukee also has a deep farm system. So if you're Chicago and Chris Getz, maybe you get a nice little pull. And Milwaukee also has the pitching lab and the catching lab, and they like make their pitchers so much better. So I think that would be a really savvy move for Milwaukee or St. Louis. Milwaukee is more, I guess, locked into a playoff spot. So I don't know if they're going to disrupt the apple cart, but we've seen them implode with the rough starting pitching in the playoffs, especially last year. So go get another arm, go get a couple innings that can help you in October.
Yeah, and I think, Fetty this year has really been a workhorse too. And I think both those teams, they definitely need guys like that. I mean, St. Louis has gotten by thanks to their bullpen. Ryan Helsley has been fantastic, but they have the 3rd worst run differential in the National League, it's crazy for a team that's in a playoff spot. But they kind of remind me of the Marlins last year, where they're getting by with not especially great offense, decent starting pitching, but not like anything to write home about necessarily. Mm-hmm. Sonny Gray's fine, but it's a lot of guys in their mid-30s you're relying on, and who knows? I mean, Gray has also been on the IL this year, so I think Fetty would be a solid get for them. Same with the Brewers. I mean, the Brewers again they've way exceeded my expectations this year. Like, wow, yeah. I was wrong about Milwaukee this year, but to your point, they do have a way to develop arms, and really their starting pitching has been a weakness for them, I think. Mm-hmm. It's been solid, but Freddie Peralta hasn't necessarily been an ace for them this year the way people expected. I mean, shout out to my boy Jolly Olive, but he had Peralta as a dark horse for the Cy Young this year, and he's been fine. He's been 3.88 ERA. Tobias Myers really has been their best starting pitcher this year. It's unfortunate because they lost Robert Gasser for the year and they lost Joe Ross for the year. But Myers, Colin Rea, they only have 4 starters listed on their baseball reference page. So they definitely could use another guy. Fetty, I think, is an attractive arm for a lot of people. And I had a feeling coming back from Korea, he made a lot of adjustments. So I had a feeling he was going to succeed this year. And they got him on a good deal, only $5 million per year. I say let's move over to another arm. And another guy, this one's a rental. I'm talking about Jack Flaherty. He's had a resurgence. Granted, Detroit has also been surging lately. They're not necessarily in the playoff picture. They're still quite a ways back. They are still 6 back of a wild card spot, but they have been playing much better lately. They're only 2 games under 500. So where do you see Jack Flaherty going?
The Orioles and Cardinals, for that matter, have the chance to do the funniest thing of all time.
Yeah. Yep, 100%.
Yeah, Jack Flaherty would be a perfect fit for the Orioles. The problem is they tried that last year. It bombed. It totally bombed. It was a total disaster. So they're not doing that again. He makes a lot of sense for the Cardinals, another one of his former teams. So he makes a lot of sense for the Brewers. He makes a lot of sense for the Red Sox. I think Flaherty is, if you're on the scale of like 0 chance he gets traded. So I don't know, Francisco Lindor at this point, it's like 100% chance he gets traded. Flaherty might be the 100% chance he gets traded. He, like you said, he's a rental. The Tigers are still out of a playoff spot. I think of the guys we're going to talk about, he is the most likely to be dealt. And Baltimore, it makes so much sense. I even have the Photoshop with him in an Orioles jersey. I have it ready.
Wow, I wonder how'd you get that?
I had 2 angles as well. It was crazy. So that's obviously not going to happen. St. Louis, I don't think they want to go down that path again. Although, again, he would be a good move for these teams. I'm going to actually piggyback off your Boston idea, get him back in the American League East, give our future president, Andrew Bailey, another arm to work with. Just plug him in, plug and play. Boston, if they got Jack Flaherty, they're winning the division. Okay, maybe not, but in theory.
I'm going in a different direction here. Flaherty is from Los Angeles and went to Harvard Westlake.
Don't do
Lucas
it.
Giolito, and Lucas Giolito and Max Fried. That's who it was.
Yes. Oh, okay. He's going to be on the Braves. Okay, thanks.
You are incorrect. I have him going to the Dodgers. The Dodgers, I mean, they are cruising to a division title, but their pitching staff is held together by duct tape.
And they just DFA James Paxton.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to mention that. James Paxton, who, by the way, had a 4.43 ERA. If you want another argument why wins and losses are such a great statistic, by the way, no disrespect to anyone who values them, but he's 8-2 this year with a 4.43 ERA. He has walked 48 batters in 89 innings and has only struck out 64. But the Dodgers score for him, so he's 8-2. But do they need pitching. Their pitching staff. I mean, Glasnow's hurt, Yamamoto's hurt, Buehler's hurt. Bobby Miller got sent to the minors. Clayton Kershaw is finally coming back, but Clayton Kershaw, what are you expecting? What are you expecting from 36-year-old Clayton Kershaw? If you're expecting him to be, even 2019 Clayton Kershaw, I don't know what to tell you. Clayton Kershaw is, I'm sure he'll still be above average, but I think Flaherty makes a lot of sense for them. And they do have some capital to give up, some position player capital in particular. So, and the Tigers need hitters. Yes. I mean, it feels like they're, other than Riley Green, and I guess Kerry Carpenter has been solid, but it feels like the Tigers have struck out on a lot of their.
Colt Keith?
Colt Keith has started to get better. I'll give him that much. But Spencer Torkelson has been a disappointment this year.
Do not look at his AAA stats.
Yeah, I unfortunately made that mistake the other day. Jake Rogers has, he's regressed this year. It feels like the Tigers haven't had a strong superstar on offense since prime Miguel Cabrera. So I think Flaherty to the Dodgers for a couple of their, mid to high end, top 10 to top 15 prospect range, I could see that working out pretty well. I think Flaherty is almost certainly going to get dealt, especially given his contract status. So I say, we move on to a guy who I don't think there's a super high chance he gets dealt, but he's definitely still on the block. And I'm talking about Mason Miller. He's taken the world by storm this year. It's been super fun to watch. This guy who, he could throw 104 miles per hour, but he also has a wipeout slider that's about 89 miles per hour. So a huge difference. And he's been, I think, the best reliever in baseball this year. So I will say this much. The A's could get a ton, and I mean a ton, in return for Mason Miller if they do decide to trade him. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has 5-6 years left of control. He's 70 strikeouts in 39 innings this year against only 14 walks and only 3 homers allowed, 1.67 FIP. Realistically, though, I do not see the A's getting an offer they like. So I'm going to say that Mason Miller stays put. There are some teams that have the capital. Like I said, the Orioles. The Orioles have the capital. Maybe they decide, maybe we won't put our eggs in the Garrett Crochet basket. Maybe we go for Mason Miller instead. I can see the Orioles being one of the few teams that could do this. Realistically, I can't think of another team that has the capital the Orioles do to get Mason Miller. So I have him staying put. I mean, I just can't see it. It's not realistic for it to happen. Yeah. And I also don't think it'd be a good trade for the A's either.
Right. And it's Miller's like the best case scenario in terms of service time, right? He's, technically rookie eligible. He's not a free agent until 2030. Let that sink in. 2030.
Exactly.
So if you're trading him, you're in theory going to get a haul, but you can also look and say, well, he's only a closer as of right now, at least. He
wants to be a starter, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, he has significant injury history. And I think we've talked about this before. I think there's a disconnect in potentially what you want to get from an asset like that and what I think teams would be willing to give up, because Major League Baseball teams, as generally, there's an AJ Preller and a Jerry Dipoto that throw caution into the wind sometimes. Major League general managers and POBOs are more risk averse. If you have this asset, Mason Miller is an asset. He could be the best reliever in baseball for the rest of the decade. There are not many players you can say, yeah, he's going to be good for the next 6 years as a reliever, especially. But the stuff is just out the wazoo. But these teams are going to look at that and they're going to say, well, he's probably only a reliever and he has huge injury red flags. And do you want to trade for that? And I think teams are going to say no. I think there are teams that could make the trade. Baltimore, I think the Dodgers could probably swing the trade. Like you said, with all the position players they had, the Pajeses of the world and the Diego Cartayas and all of the other players that are blocked. Because remember, they have Will Smith, they have Freddie Freeman, they have a DH every day in Shohei Ohtani, that you don't have the spots that you can rotate in players that other teams might have the luxury of being able to. We can just, like Michael Busch got traded to Chicago, for example, there. So the Dodgers, I think, could make the move, and he would be an upgrade in that bullpen. As shaky as it's been at times, Evan Phillips likes to.
He's not been that good. He's been a kind of a liability lately.
He likes to live on the edge a little bit. So
yeah,
I think the Dodgers make a lot of sense there. Like you said, the Orioles have the prospect capital. I don't think Mason Miller gets moved.
So let's. We're going to stay in the American League again here, because the next guy, I think, much like two of his other teammates we've already talked about, I think he's on his way out the door. Luis Robert Jr. Or Luis Robert, sorry. When he's healthy, he's an electrifying player. But his team, I mean, I don't know what else I can say about the White Sox this year. They are 27-74. So Splash. I have a feeling he's on his way out. Where does he get traded, though?
You said Phillies. I wanted to ban you from the show, and you said the Phillies. I do think Luis Robert gets traded. Seattle makes sense. I know Julio had the injury scare yesterday. I think the X-rays were negative. Achilles is intact, so he's probably going to be fine. Maybe a 10-day AL stint or out for a week. It's tough with Robert. I've talked about Pittsburgh before. Alex and I got into a big argument about that one.
I mean, I just can't see Pittsburgh going all in this year. That's the issue.
Yeah, although I will say Robert's not just an all in for this year. He's a push your chips in the
for
next few
couple years. Yeah,
he
has 3 years of control after this year.
So. I'm going to go a little bit out of right field here. I think he makes sense for Boston. Boston needs a little bit more right-handed thump in their lineup. They have your center fielder in Jarren Duran, who's been terrific this season, All-Star Game MVP, homered in LA over the weekend. But you need a little bit more thump to me. You need a little bit more thump in the lineup. You have your productive lefties, and lefties at Fenway are always productive, it feels like. But maybe a little bit more right-handed pop. You get a little bit more athletic in the outfield. Not that they're not unathletic. Like you have David Hamilton and Ceden Rafaela and Jarren Duran and Connor Wong as a catcher is incredibly athletic. You're going to get Tristan Casas back. Just add another bat and inch closer to that playoff situation and get like a superstar level player in Robert. At least when he's healthy, he's that kind of guy. And Boston doesn't, to me, have that kind of superstar level player, unless you count Tristan Casas as an interview. But
well, yeah. Well, so I'm going in a bit of a different direction. You mentioned the Mariners, and that's where I think he ends up. The Mariners are desperate for some offense. I mean, it's a miracle they are over 500 and tied for the division lead in the AL West with the way their offense has been this year. I mean, straight up, last in the league in batting average, 14th in OPS, 14th in slugging percentage. They're 7th in the league in home runs, yes, but they've also struck out more than any other team.
They reset the record for most consecutive games with 10 or more strikeouts.
Yeah, so they're it's just not cutting it. With all due respect, I think the Mariners have talent on their roster that is just not performing this year, and they just put Ty France on irrevocable waivers, so their offense is just it's not getting the job done this year. I think. I'm not saying Luis Robert is a perfect player, but he could definitely slot in well in that lineup. I mean, I like that Victor Robles is surging right now. He's finally playing his, something that we expected from him in Washington. But I don't think you can be a playoff team with him batting second in your lineup. So I think the Mariners, they have 6 top 100 prospects. I see them moving a guy like Celestin. I see them moving Logan Evans potentially with all the pitching depth they have. I can see them moving Evans. I can see them moving Michael Morales. And remember that you are getting Robert not just for this year. You have 2025, and then he has they have 2 team options on him. So you can keep him around for 2 extra years through 2027. So I think the Mariners make a lot of sense. Like I said, my God, they could use any offense they can get right now. So if you're a seller right now and have any type of offensive talent available on your roster, you should probably call Jerry DePote. And Jerry DePote has already called you.
Yeah, that's true. I will say, if they're a right-handed hitter, you don't have to worry about much because right-handed hitters just suck in Seattle for whatever reason.
I don't know what it is. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get Alex to call in and probably murder both of us. What about Luis Robert to the Astros?
I don't see that happening. But it's not the most unrealistic thing I've ever heard of.
Okay, because they've had inconsistent production in center. You have, Dubon, Myers, Chas McCormick's been an absolute disaster this season. Tucker's not back yet, so you need that outfield depth. I don't know.
That's the thing. I mean, how much longer is Kyle Tucker out? That's the thing, because he was an MVP candidate when he was on the field this year, but he's been out for 6 weeks now?
He came back for a couple games, if memory serves, and then
he clearly wasn't healthy. Yeah, so man, it would really bolster their lineup, but I don't see it happening. That's
I
the
don't
issue.
think it happens either. Let me be clear, but I don't know. I think that makes. See, I like to think of these things as what I would do or what I don't necessarily think would be fun, because then I would just have the Phillies sign everybody that's bad at baseball. But I like to have some creativity here. Like Pittsburgh, they need a center fielder. Houston could use a center field upgrade. Boston could use some more right-handed power. And I don't necessarily think these things are entirely likely. I think Baltimore and the Dodgers are probably going to be, the top destinations. Atlanta probably makes a move. Philadelphia probably makes a move, but inject some, I guess, some creativity into these deadline discussions. Like, when's the last time we talked about the Pirates as a serious? They're going to add a player at the deadline team.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you have the Royals being buyers this year. The Pirates are being buyers. Oh, actually, we don't know if the Pirates are being buyers, but they're in a position where they could be buyers at the deadline. Which, like you said, I mean, I remember the last time the Pirates were buyers in 2018, and unfortunately went a little too far all in with their trade chips. But got to be aggressive sometimes. The National League has been weak this year. I was saying this to one of my friends yesterday, but the talent gap between the NL and AL is kind of ridiculous this year. So, yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. But did you have something else to add, or?
Byron Buxton's had a good year, but do you think Minnesota could be in the world for an outfielder?
I mean, to help keep Buxton healthy, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea. Buxton's been much better lately, by the way. He
had 2 homers yesterday.
Yeah, and I have him in fantasy. It's been a lot of fun to play him every day. But Max Kepler is kind of a platoon bat at this point. So maybe Buxton, or maybe if you get Lubob, you move him to the corner. I also don't see the White Sox trading in the division. That's thing.
True.
So
that's true.
Anyways, let's move on. Another American League player. Wow, I'm sensing a lot of. We've had a lot of American League players.
Now, I will explain why.
Yes.
The National League, every team besides the Marlins, Rockies, Nats, really is in the heat of the playoff race.
Yes,
it feels like it. Even the Nats they could sweep a series. They swept the Reds, right?
They swept the Reds, yes.
So now you're like kind of flirting with the playoffs. In the American League, there's much more of a hierarchy of the Yankees are going to be in, the Orioles are going to be in, the Guardians are going to be in. You have the Mariners and Astros who are there, of course. But then there's like the mediocre middle is not a thing. Like Boston's a good team. You have Tampa who's just above 500, and then you have the drop off. It's Texas. Is Texas going to sell? That is a.
I think
the reigning World Series champions sell.
I know it's kind of ridiculous, but in my opinion, it'd be wise for them to sell because given their roster,
the age,
it's age and it's a decent amount of expiring deals. So
it's like, what do you think you can get for Scherzer? What do you think you can get for David Robertson? David Robertson, we could probably have a trivia segment on David Robertson trades.
I'm a big David Robertson fan. He's
high on Kirby Yates.
Yeah, and I fully endorse any team that wants to trade for David Robertson.
I guess he still has to cross off the Braves and the Nationals on his NL East to do.
Yeah, I was gonna say he could. I mean, maybe he checks another box there. I don't know, but the next guy we want to talk about though is Brent Rooker. This dude has had a career renaissance in Oakland. He should have been an all-star this year. I mean, it's a lot of red on his StatCast page, although the one issue is that he does still strike out a lot. He's still striking out over 30% of the time this year. Yeah, and he cannot play the field. I think by trade is an outfielder, but I wouldn't really bet on putting him in the outfield. That being said, average exit velocity of 92.2 miles per hour, hard hit rate over 50%, 35% fly ball rate. The team that I see making a move for him that I think at this point needs a DH is Cleveland. I think the Guardians, while they are in first place and have a pretty good shot at making the playoffs, their offense, I think they could use an upgrade. And I know David Fry made the All-Star game over Brent Rooker, but David Fry has not been that good since the end of May. He's not hit a home run since May 31st. That's basically 2 months without a homer. So since June 1st, David Fry has a 595 OPS.
That's
So
not
I
good.
think, David Fry is a fine bench player. Is he an everyday player? Not so much. So I think Cleveland has the depth in their farm system where they can afford to trade for Brent Rooker. I think, Rooker, I understand he's on the wrong side of 30, which kind of limits his value, but I think this is not the wrong side of 30, but he's 29 turning 30 this November. So I think this is a good matchup here. I think, Cleveland gets a potent bat that they need, and Oakland gets a solid package of prospects.
Here's my take. Brent Rooker will be traded to a team that does not adjust his immaculate grid settings. In theory, he will be traded to either the Twins or the Royals.
The Padres.
Or the Padres. I don't think the Padres would. Although the Padres could use the extra oomph,
Yeah, exactly.
I think Rooker makes so much sense for Kansas City, and he makes a lot of sense for Minnesota, but I'm going to zero in on Kansas City. This is a team that has had underperforming bats, feels like the entire season, outside of the little renaissance that Salvador Perez went on early in the season. It's just, and Bobby Witt, of course, he's
Bobby
great.
Witt, yeah, of course.
But it's
fantastic.
like the breakout candidates aren't breaking out. The Melendezes of the world, the Isbels of the world, the Garcias of the world, the Pasquatches of the world. It's like just a whole lot of meh. The rotation's
the
been
last
excellent.
started out hot and has cooled down significantly.
So you go get a guy who's going to hit 30 home runs this season. I know Kaufman's not the easiest place to hit, but hey, this year the home runs are flying. And you should see Bobby Witt's
neither is Oakland.
That's a good point. But Brent Rooker should be a Kansas City Royal by this time next week. I'm putting my foot.
Yeah, I can see the Royals. I mean, like we were saying, the Royals are buyers this year, and they should be. Mm-hmm. They're a solid team. I don't necessarily think they're going to make a super deep run in the playoffs, but I mean, they do need bats because their rotation has been very strong. I mean,
I would have no interest in seeing, if you're in a wild card series, I have no interest in going up against Cole Reagans inside Lugo 1-2.
No. And I mean, even Michael Wacha's their number 3. Wacha's been solid this year. Like it's not the 1-2 punch you probably expected to see in the playoffs. But
besides Reagans.
Reagans. But I mean, how many people expected Seth Lugo to be in the Cy Young conversation this deep in the season? I mean, I'm really happy for Seth
game
Lugo,
yesterday. I could not believe that one.
Exactly. But anyways, we have a National League candidate here. Wow. Another Marlin, by the way.
Oh, okay, great.
So this is probably the top reliever on the market, I would say, because I don't know if it's fair to say Mason Miller is really on the market, but Tanner Scott has had a great season for the Marlins. And relievers, I feel like, are always a hot commodity on the trade market and net a pretty good haul. So where do you think Tanner Scott ends up?
I think he will be closing games for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Oh,
the Phillies have a very good bullpen. Don't look at the ERA because they got annihilated by the A's last week. But the Phillies have a very good bullpen. They have 2 All-Stars, but Hoffman and Strom are not the closers. Jose Alvarado, Mr. Mound Man, it tries to be the closer. And
Hoffman has like 9 saves this year, though. He's gotten save opportunities.
That's my mistake. I do think Scott would be an upgrade. I think Philadelphia is looking at themselves and, they could use another bullpen arm. Everyone can use another bullpen arm, frankly. So I think Philadelphia, makes the move. I know it's in division. It's the Marlins. I don't think the Marlins really care. I think Philadelphia is a reasonable spot. The bullpen, again, has been a little shaky of late, so I wouldn't look at the ERA. They're still among the league leaders in like reliever WAR, if you value WAR there.
Yep.
But Philly's been really close to winning the World Series the last 2 years, and I think they want that extra push over. They don't want a Craig Kimbrell situation, so go get another arm.
Speaking of Craig Kimbrell, I have the Orioles getting Tanner Scott back. Where he began his career, the Orioles could use all the arms they could get. Kimbrell has been good this year. I mean, contrary to what their fans may tell you, he's actually been very good. 2.72 ERA. I understand he's had a couple of blow-up outings, but overall 2.93 FIP, 13.6 strikeouts per 9. So he's been strong. He does have 5 or 6 blown saves, which is concerning, but I think, Tanner Scott is a very strong fit for them. They really haven't had a lot of production from their lefties this year, and especially with Danny Coulombe out this year. Scott, the walks are a concern, yes, but he gets plenty of strikeouts. He keeps the runs off the board, which is, I mean, there's a reason he made his first All-Star game this year, 1.27 ERA, 16 saves. Like I said, the 14% walk rate is a concern, but I think this is a great setup man for Kimbrel, or maybe, you know, lefties are coming up in the order. Maybe you put Scott in for the save. It'd be a great 1-2 punch. And like you were saying, last year, Kimbrel kind of fell off in the playoffs. In 2018 with the Red Sox, he kind of tired towards the end. I think this makes a lot of sense here. So Scott, I think, heads back to Baltimore. Like I said, Baltimore has the prospects to trade for both Crochet and Scott, or, you know, an elite star and elite reliever. So yeah.
For the Braves fans that listen, Tanner Scott out of the group we're going to talk about is probably the best option, I would say, with the lefties in the Braves bullpen. It was supposed to be this lefty gauntlet. Hasn't materialized. AJ Minter's he's been fine. Jimenez is a righty, but he's been absolutely electric against lefties. Aaron Bummer is not really a strikeout guy. He's more like a ground ball guy. So if you want something different in the bullpen, Tanner Scott, again, in division, but you've had the Duvall trade in recent years. So I don't know, for the Braves fans listening, Tanner Scott would be my pick of this litter, at least.
Yeah, and I understand the Mets also need a left-handed reliever, but I don't see them shelling out guys for an in-division trade necessarily. Or, you know, because Scott is, for my money, the best reliever on the market. So I don't necessarily see the Mets shelling out prospects for a reliever in a year where I don't necessarily think they can make it super far in the playoffs. I think they can make the playoffs, but I don't see them.
I don't want to face that lineup in the playoffs. Series. I know that.
Well, the lineup struggled a bit out of the break, but we'll see what happens there. But let's move on to our last guy, and I think this might be the least likely to get traded out here. Tarek Skubal, who has been arguably the best pitcher in baseball this year. There have been rumblings that, you know, the Orioles or the Dodgers are looking at trading for him. I'm going to go out and say it. I can't see this happening. Tarek Skubal is, A, he's young, and B, he's under control. And he's been, like I said, arguably the best pitcher in baseball. And I'm not just talking about this season. Last year, after he came back from injury, he was also arguably the best pitcher in baseball. So, I mean, it'd be kind of ridiculous for the Tigers to trade him when you're taking a step forward this year. Like, trading Jack Flaherty makes sense because he's a rental and he's older. But trading Skubal makes no sense if you're trying to contend next year or the year after that. So I don't see this happening. I see the Orioles or the Dodgers trying to make a ridiculous trade offer and the Tigers rejecting it. I mean, you got to remember also, prospects are not a sure thing. So if I'm Detroit, I would not be putting Skubal on the trade block. And I'm not accepting an offer unless I'm absolutely blown away.
If the Tigers trade Skubal, just burn the franchise at that point. Let me put this into perspective. We don't know if the Tigers are good at baseball. That's the context. Tarek Skubal, in his last 34 starts since he came back on July 4th last year, he's 17-6. I know win-loss record has its whatever. Tarek Skubal, on a team that we don't think is good at baseball, is 17-6. He's winning 74% of his starts.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, a 2.57 ERA, 196 innings pitched, 1.6 walks per nine. That's absurd. 11.1 strikeouts per nine. That is bananas. He, at least this year, he leads the American League in winning percentage. Again, do wins and losses really matter? Maybe not. He has a whip below 0.9 in both seasons. Both seasons. Do not trade Tarek Skubal. I do not care if the Orioles offer you, well, I guess if you're the Orioles and you offer like Basayo and Holiday, if you could truly blow away the Tigers, and I could be talked into a trade, but I'm not looking for a trade. If you want to give me like 3 top 50 prospects, okay, maybe you talk, because the Tigers, like at the end of the day, it is the Tigers do have to fill out a 26-man roster. This isn't like it's great to have Skubal, but would you trade Skubal for three, potentially your second, third, and fourth best players moving forward. I don't know. With Riley Green being your best in theory. I hope he doesn't get traded. I hope he wins the Cy Young with Detroit like I predicted he would 2 years ago. But I don't know. Don't trade Skubal. Just a bad idea.
Yeah, like I said about the Orioles, I think with the Orioles, it's either you trade for Crochet or you trade for Skubal. It is not you trade for both because that is literally impossible. Because you're going to have to give up a king's ransom for either one of them. Especially if you have other needs on your team, you need another reliever. Mm-hmm. So I don't see this working. I don't see the Dodgers putting together a package for him either. I think Flaherty, if anything, is the fit here. So yeah. So those Fetty. Or Fetty, yeah. So those are our 10 trade candidates. Let us know where you think they end up. Maybe do you think Mason Miller gets traded, or maybe you think Tarek Skubal gets traded? Let us know. Personally, I think it'd be ridiculous to trade either one of them. But anyways, Splash, it is time for trivia, which I am hosting this week. I know it is just me and you. So I am just going to be quizzing you. Let's just put it this way.
Is it going to be Braves versus Mets home runs?
No, it is not. But because the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies were over the weekend, we are running back one of my favorite segments, Who Did He Play For? Hall of Fame edition, though. So I have 10 Hall of Famers. I want to see how well you do. Can you bat 500? Can you bat 600? Maybe you bat 1,000 on this, all right?
Hey, I don't know. What if I just try to bat 300?
I mean, there you go then. Maybe you bat 300.
Hey, I would make lots of Twitter users happy hitting 300.
Exactly. Full disclosure, I was going to try to make this who drafted them, but I realized that would have been way too easy if I did that. So I did something slightly more difficult. So I say we go ahead and get started. Are you ready?
All right. I am ready.
All right. Our first player on here is Tom Seaver.
Tom Seaver.
Did he play for the Boston Red Sox?
Tom Seaver did play for the Boston Red Sox.
Yes, he did. He finished his career in Boston. He was not active for the World Series, though. He was injured. So you're batting 1,000 to start. Let's move on.
All right, I'm retiring.
You're retiring? All right. You batted 1,000, 1 for 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Move on to
Eddie Goodell method.
Exactly. Let's move on to a guy who was just inducted this weekend, Adrian Beltre. Okay. Did he play for Alex's Seattle Mariners?
Yes, he did. I would like to point out, if you told someone in 2008 that Adrian Beltre would be a first ballot Hall of Famer, they probably would have slapped you.
Yeah, regrettably, his numbers did take a dip a little bit when he played for Seattle, but he was still still a good defender and everything. But yes, he did win 2 Gold Gloves, but he did not. It's weird. He didn't make an All-Star game until 2010.
Yeah,
which bonkers.
Looking at his 2004 season.
Yeah, it's
how does that happen? I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to our next guy, and our next player is Dennis Eckersley. Did Dennis Eckersley play for the St. Louis Cardinals?
I'm going to say no. Eck did not play with St. Louis.
Oh, that is incorrect. Dennis Eckersley played 2 seasons in St. Louis. He went. He saved 66 games with a 3.58 ERA over 120 games. So that was his second to last stop in his career.
Fair enough.
All right, let's move on to our next player, which is another reliever. I'm talking about Goose Gossage.
Oh boy.
Did he play for the Minnesota Twins?
I am going to lean no with Goose Gossage on the Twins.
That is correct. He did not play for the Twins. He played for 9 different major league teams, but not Minnesota. So,
wow.
All right, you're batting 750 so far. Let's move on to our next player, which is Gary Carter. Did Gary Carter play for the Colorado Rockies?
No.
Is that your final answer?
I do not believe Gary Carter played for the Rockies.
You're correct. He retired before the Rockies came into existence. So Gary Carter did not play for the Rockies.
Oh yeah, I was tripping there. I know Dale Murphy played for the Rockies.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like Carter started his career too early for that one. Okay.
Yeah, he played 12 years with Montreal, 5 with the Mets. Or sorry, he began with Montreal, then played 5 years with the Mets. He had stops with the Giants and the Dodgers, and then finished his career with one last season in Montreal. So he played 12 total years for Montreal. But yes, you are correct. He did not. Yeah, he did not play for Colorado. So all right, halfway through, you're 4 for 5, so you're batting 800. That's pretty good.
Take it.
Let's move on. We have another backstop here. We have Ivan Pudge Rodriguez. Did he play for the New York Yankees?
He famously got traded midseason to the New York Yankees. Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. It's interesting because reportedly he was going to get traded earlier in his career for Jorge Posada, but that deal did not happen. So they got him in 2008 in the trade for Kyle Farnsworth, 1-for-1.
Now what? Bodybuilder?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
He also famously was in a pretty good fight with Paul Wilson.
Yeah.
On opening day, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. If there was like a baseball player that like the Aaron Donald shtick that like if you're fighting the aliens or you're fighting the zombies, Kyle Farnsworth might be my first pick. Like among baseball players.
With the shape he's in, like it's yeah. Anyway, so yeah, you're correct there. Wow, you're doing pretty well. 5 for 6.
All right.
Let's move on to our next player. And the next player is Jim Thome. Did he play for the Los Angeles Dodgers?
Jim Thome, if memory serves, did play with the Dodgers briefly.
Yes, he did very briefly. 17 games, only went 4 for 17. He did drive in 3 runs in those 17 games, but no walks, 7 strikeouts, no extra base hits. So, not his brightest moment. But yes, he was traded at the waiver trade deadline in 2009. Anyone else miss the waiver trade deadline, or is it just me?
Justin Verlander.
Yeah, Justin Verlander, that whole Carl Crawford, Adrian Gonzalez, Josh Beckett deal. That was kind of, that was a waiver deadline deal. I missed those days. They were kind of wild because you had the trade deadline, and then everyone would get put on waivers, and then in August you'd negotiate some other wild trades. So yes, you are correct. Jim Thome though did play for the Dodgers. So wow, you're doing pretty well here. Let's move on to our next player, another first baseman. I am talking about Jeff Bagwell.
Oh boy.
Did he play for the Boston Red Sox?
The Bagwell thing is hilarious because if there was anyone in baseball history meant to play for the Boston Red Sox, it would be Jeff Bagwell, and he played 0 games with the Boston Red Sox at the major league level.
You are correct. He was drafted by the Red Sox. He's from Boston.
His grandmother was a diehard Red Sox fan.
Exactly.
And they botched it for Larry Anderson.
Yeah, he went to high school in Middletown, Connecticut. He went to college at Hartford. Like, this is literally like destiny. You're going to play for the Red Sox. And he got traded before he could get there. Became a Hall of Famer with the Houston Astros, playing his entire career in Houston. So, yes, you are correct. He did not play for the Red Sox. By the way, I'm not a big fan of, keeping track of runs scored, but he did score 152 runs in a season, which is pretty impressive.
A popular number in Braves circles last year when Acuna was trying to chase that down. Didn't happen.
I'll be honest. Runs scored is, when 100+ run season is on like Immaculate Grid or something, that's something I just fold on. I'll be completely honest. But let's move on. So we have 2 players left. You're doing very well. You're 8 for 9. You're 7 for 8. Let's move on. Our next player is Phil Niekro. He played for a lot of teams. Did he play for the Cincinnati Reds?
Ooh.
24-year big league career.
I'm going to say no on the Reds. I know he played for Cleveland, obviously Atlanta, New York. I'm going to say no on the Reds.
You're correct. He played 21 seasons in Atlanta, 2 in Cleveland, 2 with the Yankees, 1 with Toronto. He appeared in 3 games for Toronto. But no, he did not play for Cincinnati. So, wow, you are 8 for 9, man, on a roll right now. It's pretty good. So we do have one last player, another relief pitcher, another guy who played for a bunch of teams. So let's see if you know your stuff. Lee Smith is our last player. I thought I'd go with a closer to close things out. Did he play for the Baltimore Orioles?
Lee Smith. I wouldn't be shocked. I'm gonna lean no here.
So is that your answer?
My final answer is I don't know if you're trying to dupe me here. I'm gonna say no. Final answer is no. He probably did though.
Yes, he did play for the Orioles. He
Oh.
played in the strike-shortened season with Baltimore in 1994. It's a 36-year-old saved a major league leading 33 games in 38 and a third innings. It wasn't his best season, but it is one of 4 times he led his league in saves.
Checks out.
Yeah, so
no,
actually
8
that
for
is
10's not bad. 8 for
yeah,
10's
that's a pretty good showing. He batted 800. For those who like the win-loss statistic, he had an 800 winning percentage today. So, good job, Splash. You did well.
Apparently, Whit Merrifield got hurt taking grounders today.
Oh my God, that's
average Braves moment.
This year. Okay. I guess that's the way things are going. But anyways, we have reached the end of our show, which means we will conclude with the segment we conclude every show with, which is the moment to ourselves, 60 seconds or so to talk about whatever the heck is on your mind. So, Splash, do you want to go first here?
Yeah.
All right. I'll count you down. We'll get started in 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello. I will say one positive thing before I get into the negatives. I'm happy to see that Nacho Alvarez is batting second today and is making his major league debut. Wish it didn't have to come with the Ozzy Albies injury, but here we are. Negatives. This is really the year from hell for the Braves. It's like everyone's hurt or underperforming, and it's just, I don't know. It's not a very fun product, right? And the Braves are, even when they weren't like winning the World Series in 2021, it's like 18, 19, 20, and they're the playoff chokers. They have the 3-1, and they have all the runs allowed to the Cardinals. Those are fun teams, right? You get to watch Ronald Acuna every day. You get to watch Ozzy every day. You get to watch Old Man Dick Markakis. You watch Freddie lacing doubles. You get to watch the Fulties and the Tehrans, and it's just like a lot of fun, right? And now it's like depressing to watch this team, and it's like they're obviously still good, and the rotation's been phenomenal, and Raylo's been great, and Sale's been great, and the bullpen's been very good. And but it's like Strider's out, Fried's out. Your young arms, Smith Shawver was out with injury. Waldrop hasn't started throwing again. And your opening day lineup, Murphy missed 2 months. Olsen struggled the entire season. Ozzy's going on the IL for the second time. Riley missed like 2 or 3 weeks. RC has been horrendous. Duvall couldn't hit righties for a month. Acuna is out for the year. Harris has been out for 2 months. Like the only like real exciting player, you have Marcell Ozuna, who that comes with its own baggage. And then Jared Kelenic, who's been hot and cold, but it's been a fun player to watch. So it's been one of those years, I guess, for the Braves. It'd be one thing like last year or in 2022, you just get beat by the Phillies. Okay, that's fine. You got outplayed by the Phillies, but now it's like, I don't know if that's even a competition. Like, and that's like the injuries just kind of suck, man.
Well, honestly, sounds kind of like the year the Mets endured last year. Or actually, I've endured a lot of those seasons. What am I talking about?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
My go-to is the Ravens 2021 season. It's like if Lamar Jackson's on the field, they have a chance of winning the football game, unless it's against the Steelers. But simply, if he is on the football field, you have a chance, and it's going to be fun. And then he's out, and they lose every game the rest of the way. It's like, why do I bother living? Maybe that's too far,
it's tough though this year. I mean, a lot of the guys who've gotten hurt are the mainstays. So it's like, I mean, do you try to replace them immediately, or like, are you?
Yeah. It's like the Robert trade doesn't make any sense because Harris is coming back and Acuna will be back next year. And you have Marcell Ozuna is plugging the DH spot. So it's like, oh, well, yeah, you can just DH Acuna next year. No, you can't. I don't want to see Marcell Ozuna play in the outfield.
Well, that'd be kind of ugly.
Yeah.
When's the last time he's played the field regularly?
I think I saw him play in the field last year opening day. But he played in the field in Washington the first series of the year last year.
I remember when the Mets had Daniel Vogelback. I don't think he played a single inning in the field.
For
so,
good
like,
reason. You also have Pete Alonso.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, I'll get started with my time in 3, 2, 1. So I guess I want to talk about the Mets deadline approach because they're 2 games over 500. They're tied for a playoff spot. I will say that I don't want them to be sellers, hard sellers. Like, this is a team that I think can make the playoffs and I think can at least make it to the NLDS, if not the NLCS. But I also don't want them to mortgage the future for rentals. I don't want them to mortgage the future for relief pitchers. Those are, they definitely do need relievers. They definitely need a lefty. They definitely need another righty, and they could use a corner outfield bat. I'd like to say stop batting DJ Stewart fifth. He has a slugging percentage around 200 since May 1st, and also, like, don't trade Ryan Clifford. Don't trade Drew Gilbert. Don't trade Jet Williams. Heck, don't even trade Luis Angel Acuna. Hang on to those big prospects, but please be willing to trade a guy like Dom Hamill or Mike Vassell. There are trades that can be made without blowing up your farm system, and I trust David Stearns to do the right thing, and I think this team has a lot of potential, and I hope it's realized a bit this year.
Yeah, the Mets are one team that I would have no interest playing in a playoff series.
Yeah, they've played really well after the whole Jorge Lopez incident. So
yeah,
I will say I don't think they were as bad as they showed in May, but I don't necessarily think they're world beaters like they were in June. I think they're
Martinez,
they can.
Lindor, well, in theory, Alonso, but Alonso's been kind of cheeks this year. Nimmo
and Martinez is struggling too, so it's weird. Like the middle of the order bats are kind of
so I'll give him a break.
That's why I want him around. Is that the offense has been significantly better since he's been around. He even helped Jose Iglesias down in Syracuse. Of course. Alvarez is a guy who, the difference he makes behind the plate. He can go 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, but the pitchers like pitching to him, so they win the game normally. So I'm happy with the way Alvarez is playing.
Do the Mets catchers still have the issues throwing out base runners?
Luis Torrens doesn't. I'll tell you that much. He's 8 for 11.
I need the Braves. Like when the Braves play, I don't care about the baseballs anymore. Can we ban stolen bases when the Braves are in the field? I swear, I don't think I've seen Travis d'Arnaud throw a guy out this year. He's had more Ozzie Albies injuries than it just. Arizona ran all over. San Diego ran all over. St. Louis ran all over.
I got pretty used to that. But anyways, that'll do it for us today. Like I said earlier, let us know what you think about what will happen at the trade deadline. What's your favorite team going to do? Will Tarek Skubal get dealt? Will Mason Miller get dealt? I mean, heck, will Randy Arozarena get traded? But let us know at LAR_baseball on Twitter. Make sure to follow the two of us on Twitter. Follow myself at Matthias_A_K. Follow Splash at Mr. Splashman19. And of course, drop Alex a follow at the Sports Guy 242. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. Drop us a like. Leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. If you don't like the show, well, you can tell us that. Still leave a 5-star review.
Hey, you can email us lossabovereplacement@gmail.com.
Yeah, maybe you don't like something we said. Well, tough, but also feel free to tell us. So, anyways, thank you all for listening. Stay safe, and I hope to see you all real soon. Thank you.